can be an amazing thing, but sometimes it really makes us work for it. But okay, so let's resume. So it is Women's History Month, and of course, in honor of Women's History Month, I know even in your book you talked about women, that mean a lot to you and have inspired you. So can you talk to us a little bit about those women and how they've inspired you and helped you along just your journey?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, I think I first have to start off with me, my mother, and everything she means to all of us. My mom was a part of the desegregating class of Hamilton High School in Memphis, Tennessee. But even more importantly, while many people give and my father a great deal of praise, and rightfully so, they oftentimes overlooked that there was a woman who carried the family while he was in prison and gave birth to my sister, um, my aunt, while my father was in prison. There was a woman who had to help make ends meet because, um, um, my father had a felony in the South, although it was unjust. Imagine trying to navigate that. So my mother deserves a great deal of credit. I wrote the book though, so in that chapter, it's entitled "Why Are the Strongest Women in the World Dying?"
Yep.
And I wanted to give props to my aunt Jenny Marie, who was the matriarch of our family. She and many women like her were the old women who sit at the front two rows of the church with the big hats on, who give you the little candies,
Yep.
mints and butterscotches, and they wear those big hats and they make pound cakes and
Mhm.
coconut cakes using a full stick or two of butter. And many people don't know that they got to go home and make decisions about whether or not they, get their prescription drugs or pay their utility bills. And so for me, that's what it was. I wanted to make sure that I wrote something giving them the props that they deserve, and know that that I stand on their shoulders. It was also talking about Fannie Lou Hamer and
Mhm.
Ella Baker. It was talking about Shirley Chisholm and
Yes.
Hillary Clinton, and I didn't write about it. I'll write about it in the next one. But even Kamala Harris, it's that
Mhm.
you don't have Kamala without Hillary. You don't have Hillary without Shirley. You don't have Shirley without Fannie Lou and Ella Baker and Mamie Till. And so I just
Exactly.
wanted people to know the value and import. And last but not least, of course, my beautiful bride and the strength that she showed in birthing. I'm not one but two kids at the same time, and my sweet little Sadie, who has overcome so much. And so, making sure that I wrote something that gave a political context and framework to many of the struggles that Black women face, but also give them their flowers was important to me.
Definitely. I love that. And also in your book, you mentioned about, your dealings and your journey, with your mental health and your own anxiety. And of course, that oftentimes is a stigma, in our own community. And so what is it like? Just share with us what it's like living with that and how you were able to open up about it and kind of find your own strength.
For me, that was a chapter that was, I always tell folk the first chapter of my book um, was probably the most well written. You could touch it, smell it, taste it. It was just a well written chapter. We talked about growing up in the low country of South Carolina. Um, uh, the most difficult chapter was, of course, talking about the birth of Sadie and everything we went through with that, and my wife nearly dying in childbirth. And I guess the most cathartic or therapeutic, I don't know which word is the right word. I'll let one of your professors tell you which one is the right word. But it was a chapter on anxiety because for me, it was geared towards one group of people. Although it helped out so many, it was geared towards Black men, just letting them know that you can go through these issues uh,
Right.
where you have these worries that sometimes I think, many people, Ayala Van Zant, who I talk to regularly, she always says is when you're in your head without adult supervision. And that's kind of
Mhm.
what it's like. You're just stuck in your head and you can't get
Mhm.
out. You begin to worry and think about this or think about that, and they're just unrealistic. That's what the doctors say. But I wanted people to know that I have a beautiful family and a great job, great career, and I'm on TV and all these other things, but still have to work through these issues on a daily basis. And so it's okay to talk to people. It's okay to give your full self and tell your full truth, which is what I try to do, not just in that book, but every single day of my life.
Definitely, definitely. I think that's really good. And I really love that you included that in your book because like I said, a lot of times we don't talk about it and it's not talked about enough, especially when it does come to our Black men and just Black folk in general. So I really do appreciate that. And so speaking of your book, tell us a little bit about your book, what inspired you to write it, and just some things that we haven't touched on yet.
Nah, I mean, I've always wanted to write a book, mainly because my father wrote one. It was The River of No Return is the name of his book. It was a great book. And how about my entire life, I was like, man, I'm gonna write a book one day. I'm gonna write a book one day. And I tried to write a political book. I was really good friends with a young lady named Kayleigh McEnany, who was she ended up becoming the press secretary for Donald Trump, but we were on CNN together for a long time, and we used to go out to eat and drink wine. And I remember one day she told me she got a book deal, and I was like, this is something I want to do. But I got turned down 32 times for this book because it wasn't a memoir at first. It was just a true political book.
Right.
And, nobody wanted to hear a Democrat's thoughts on growing up Black in Trump's America.
Yeah.
It's cool. But I met a Black woman named Tracy Sherrod who, she was I believe she still is the only Black female head of a major imprint. She's at Amistad, which is at HarperCollins. And she sat down with me and gave me a chance. I mean, they're known for republishing Zora Neale Hurston, Steve Harvey, Think Like a Man. They're known for a lot of these books. And they gave me a chance to just tell my story. So I talked about the Orangeburg Massacre, where my father, Zion's granddad, nearly gave what Abraham Lincoln called the last full measure of devotion for this country. And I talked about the Charleston Massacre, where my good friend Clem was killed. And I had to write the book pretty fast. I wrote it in about 4 months, which is fast. This book I'm taking probably closer to 5 or 6 months. It's actually a shorter book too, so
Wow.
it's more well thought out. But I just it was exciting, and we've sold nearly 100,000 copies. It's a New York Times bestseller. It's doing some things in Hollywood right now that we're working on. So it's an amazing opportunity, and I'm just happy that people are reading it and using it in classes and teaching with it and all that good stuff.
Yes, well, congratulations to you. And I didn't know about the second book, so that's exciting as well. So I know you've mentioned it, but if you're able to tell me or tell us a little bit more kind of about that second book. And I know you said you plan to release it at the end of the year. You have a kid book coming out and an adult book coming out. So what is that like for you right now, and kind of where are you going with it?
Well, the children's book is done. The illustrations are just being drawn now as we speak. So that's done. The name of that book is Who Are Your People? And it's for me, with kids, I'm just tired of seeing like purple people on TV. I want them to be able to one day be able to see like some Black folk on cartoons. So if this book makes it to that point, hopefully it will. But it's entitled Who Are Your People? And Sadie and Stokely are kind of the images that are used. And it's no matter, because down south, I don't know where you're from, but in Denmark and throughout the South, we would always say like, who are your people? Who are your people?
Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's how folk. And
Yeah.
it's a book that tells kids no matter where they're from or who their people are, they can go out and change the world. And then the adult book is more forward looking and more prescriptive, more political in nature, but it should be pretty good. So we're still going to have some of those memoir elements and some of those storytelling elements, but it's a very forward looking book. And I'm still in the middle of it now. So
Okay.
we'll see. I can't tell you what it's going to look like, but we'll see when we get there.
Okay, well, that is it. That is so exciting. I'm definitely excited for the children's book as well. You have a point, kids need to see themselves in books and instead of kind of a false sense of reality. So I love that. I will definitely be purchasing and reading it to my own nieces as well. So I think that's awesome. I'll also be looking forward to the adult book for myself. because your memoir it's just so digestible. I love the way that you put it together, and it's relatable. Even though we may not be on the same level, I can definitely relate to a lot of things that you wrote about and mentioned. And of course, my favorite chapter is the one about Black women and how they're dying. And you speak about that literally with your wife, but I think also sometimes mentally, we struggle with that as well. So to have another Black man recognize that and speak on that, it means a lot to me personally, as a Black woman. So I'm sure there are many others who really do appreciate that. And I think that's something that you really need to hear, especially from a young Black woman who's, on this journey as SGA president, has been through a lot. So I definitely appreciated it. I love reading your book. It's straight to the point, and it's transparent. And I think that a lot of times people move away from that sometimes.
I'm thankful for those kind words, certainly.
Yes, it's definitely needed. And so kind of back to your journey and what you do. I know a lot of times college students or just people in general, we deal with people who may not always think like us or agree with us, but of course, we're always still working towards a common goal or a common purpose, even amongst ourselves. So, how do you kind of navigate working with those who may not always agree with you or may not always have that same type of mindset as you, even though you know that there's still things that need to be done. A lot of times, it takes both parties to make something happen or to pass something. So it's the same thing in any type of workplace or school or with any administration. You have to work with people who don't have those same values or beliefs as you, because at the end of the day, there's something else that you want to accomplish. So what is that like for you, and how do you kind of navigate that?
Yeah, that's tough though, because I do that on national TV with sometimes folk you just outright disagree with. I mean,
Right.
my dad gave me some of the best advice that I'll give you guys, which is, you never argue with a fool because people watching can't tell the difference. And so you never want to get sucked into, having an argument with somebody who don't know what they're talking about. And time is money. So I don't really just be out here arguing with all types of folks. I mean, you gotta protect your peace, as the kids say. Um, the other thing is always be prepared when you're going out here and you're putting your best foot forward. And, you can't underscore knowing what you're talking about in preparation.
Mhm.
When I was in law school, every morning I would read the Washington Post and the New York Times. I would read the Wall Street Journal. Um, I would have people clip out. We had a clipping service that clips articles from throughout South Carolina. I would read the LA Times when it came out around mid-morning, just so I could go out and be prepared for the day. And so I think that's so important. But sometimes, though, I think the best advice I can give you outside of don't argue with a fool because people watching can't tell the difference is sometimes you need to shut up and listen. I think we do way too much talking, especially when we get our college degrees or we this or we that, or we in this sorority or fraternity or we in SGA. We start to talk at people instead of listening to what their true concerns are. And we can learn so much when we begin to listen to each other. So that's my little bit of advice.
Okay. I like that. I like that. So, UNCP is very diverse, and we have a large percentage of Black and African American students that attend here, but also, we do have our Native American students, our Indigenous students, and other minority groups. So what advice would you give us in making sure that, we're being advocates, as we want to follow this path, that we're being advocates for ourselves, but also making sure that we're uplifting those other groups and just working together and standing in solidarity with them as well?
I mean, the first thing I say is you can't be selfish in your struggle.
Mm.
Don't go out here and think that your struggle is it. Whether or not it's the struggle for women's rights and equal pay, whether or not it's the struggle for, equity and criminal justice reform for Black folk in general. There are others out here who need us to stand with them. But there also has to be accountability. So,
Mhm.
I tell my friends, like you'll find my wife and I donate a lot of money to women's rights groups every year, Planned Parenthood, etc. And so um, we're always there. But when there's a young Black male who gets, murdered in the street, or we see, injustices in corporate America, whatever it may be, I expect those same college educated white women who I was there with on the front lines to be there with me. And so while you're not being selfish in your struggle, you're also holding people accountable, which is equally as important.
Definitely, definitely. I think that's good. So I guess also kind of speaking about, I know we didn't really talk about your journey in law school, but we do have, some aspiring, lawyers, Black lawyers, and NAACP, SGA, our political science students. So what was that journey like getting into law school and just kind of going through that process and being so young?
Yeah, I mean, I was 20 when I went to law school, and I wanted to run for office. My choices, first of all, the way I got to law school is a little interesting. I went to college to be I thought my parents and everybody wanted me to be a doctor. So I thought I was going to go be a doctor. My sister was a doctor. So I went to Morehouse with every intention to be a doctor. I was pre-med actually when I got there. But like I told y'all, I skipped a couple of grades, so I don't do math well. And I took bio for majors and chemistry 112 or something like that. And I was like, man, this ain't for me. So I had to find a major that, all my credits transferred over. And so then when I was thinking about what I was going to do after college, I didn't put a whole lot of thought into it. I knew I wanted to go into politics. But I also knew I didn't want to take a graduate school exam with math on it. So that wasn't going to be the GRE or GMAT. I wasn't going to business school. I definitely knew I wasn't going to medical school. And so the LSAT was the only graduate school exam that didn't have no math on it. So I took it. I take tests pretty well. I did well. I got to Harvard and USC, and I knew I wanted to go into politics. And so I went to University of South Carolina for law school. One of the best choices I've made. And law school is hard, but I don't get stressed out. I just I went in. My weekend started on Thursday. I appreciated every moment of that college life. I mean, I urge all of y'all to make sure your weekends start on Thursday. Don't get too caught up in those things. Enjoy life. Enjoy the moment. Make the most of every moment that you're in. Build those relationships because at the end of the day, when I'm 36 now. I can't even remember what I made in terms of grades in college. Like, don't nobody care about that. But the relationships I made in college, the friends that I made along the way, that's the most valuable thing that you have. And then I went to law school, and when I went to law school, I realized early on that what they call the person who finishes last in your law school class, they call them a lawyer. So I went to law school. I wanted to do well, but I knew I was also wanted to serve, which is why I ran for office. And I was able to just balance these things. It was very difficult, but able to find some balance and be able to win some races and do some great things along the way while enjoying my experience. And now I'm able to, about 30% of my day, 40% of my day is practicing law. About 20% of my day is speaking to young people like you guys. Another 20% of my day, 30% is I gotta remember what I do every day. Jesus Christ. Oh, doing various business deals, etc. And then CNN is the last little bit of that. And so, when by having my law degree, I'm able to just do so much, and it's presented so many opportunities for me.
Definitely, that is good. So we will be wrapping it up soon, but I do have a few last questions that I have to ask.
Sure.
When it comes to dealing with, racism and being a politician, do you ever just feel yourself kind of struggling to decide, which battles are worth fighting, which people are worth dealing with, and maybe sometimes, are they all worth fighting? Do you just kind of want to, tackle everything? And I know for you, that was probably something you did have to deal with, running, to be an elected official in South Carolina and then for lieutenant governor. But for us, it can get kind of hard trying to decide, we want to help with this and we want to be an advocate for this. And I think that sometimes we have to remind ourselves that, we have to protect our own energy, like you said, protecting your own peace, right? So, how do you kind of go about deciding what battles are worth fighting or if they're all worth fighting?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, if you got it, so you answered your own question, Katrea, which is like you gotta practice self-care and take care of yourself. because if you're not mentally and physically and emotionally healthy, then you're no good to the movement. So always do everything you can to make sure that you're healthy, right? And that's first. Second, um, I want to tackle it all. The racism that you face though is, when you put it in context, is different than what was. It's not better or worse, but it's different. I'm reminded of when people ask me about the January 6th insurrection or Charlottesville. I'm reminded that they didn't wear hoods, they didn't wear masks. They were so emboldened that the most amazing thing about that was they showed their faces. So that's where we are in this struggle right now. I'm old enough to remember when it wasn't cool to be racist, but now people wear that on their sleeve. They don't they traded in their crosses for tiki torches and Brooks Brothers suits, and they now have like cable news shows. And so we have to keep that in mind. It's shifted, and then you think about the paradigm of what we're looking at. I mean, Stokely Carmichael said it best. Stokely would say that if you want to lynch me, that's your problem, but if you have the power to lynch me, that's my problem. And Uncle Stokely was cool because what he was talking about was the systemic inequities. He was not talking about somebody calling you nigger. Like, I can't even get mad at that no more. That happens all the time. I mean, that's ignorance. You just brush that off and keep going. But you do want to tear down these walls of systemic oppression. But again, you realize that America is not irredeemable. It's just imperfect. And so you do your best to try to, for me, it's deconstructing these images and rebuilding them and reimagining what they should look like.
Right, definitely. That's good. That's good. So my last question for you, in honor of all of us who are, young leaders, how do you define leadership, and what does that mean to you? And what were some leaders that, who are some leaders that really inspire you, whether that be at your school or just in your family or just, even now?
I mean, yeah, I think that, growing up with a hero in your kitchen like my father was something that I very inspired by. I talked about my mom earlier. So growing up with both of them kind of giving me the guidepost and the resources to go out and be that change agent is very valuable. So that's kind of where, I was fortunate. I didn't have to go far. I was part of this kind of product of a proverb: it takes a village to raise a child. So, the Marion Barrys and the Julian Bonds of the world. I loved Uncle Julian, the Kathleen Cleavers of the world, the Judy Richardson of the world, those individuals who I was on the street in Washington, D.C., and saw Marion Wright Edelman one day, and she said, "Little Cleve." That's what they call me. And so it was just, just that type of experience growing up is just such an awesome, um, journey. So, you know, I think that, and I write about this in my book, I think that a lot of times we just kind of totally screwed up what leadership means. I don't even think we teach it right, with all due respect to any of your professors and teachers at the school. I think that when people think about leadership, they think about being SJ president, or they think
Mhm.
about being a pastor and having all of these parishioners, or they think about, they think about having followers of some sort, and that is the most perverted description of leadership you can possibly give. See, and so if you're not creating other leaders around you, then you yourself are not a leader.
That's good.
And so I've always told individuals that if you're not helping and cultivating others to go out, that's what made King so special, because
Mhm.
everybody around King was able to go out and do the work. I mean, they played a role, but they were all leaders in their own right. Um, that's what made Stokely and John Lewis so special when they were, chairs of SNCC, and Marion Barry so special because they cultivated leaders around them. And so I've always told folk that it doesn't matter how many followers you have. That's silly. Leadership begets other leaders, and we have to make sure that's our mindset going forward.
Yes, yes, thank you. Well, is there anything else that you would like to share with us, here at UNCP? Any last words or advice that you might have for us before we wrap it up?
I'm just very proud of you guys, and I'm very proud of the work that you're doing. And you're doing this, and you're unapologetically Black. You're unapologetically who you are, but you're very cognizant of the environment that you're in, and uplifting all people, and building a more perfect union. So I'm very proud of you. I'm proud of Zion for just growing and building friends, and being a part of organizations like this and carrying the name well. And I'm just somebody who is here on this journey, and it's not time for me to pass a torch yet, but I do want to meet y'all at the top. And so anything that I can do to help, I'm always here.
Yes, you never know. You might see me again. We'll see.
I plan on being on campus soon. So
Okay. Okay. Well, I'm graduating in May, so if you don't make it back, let me know, and then I'll make a little drive back to Pembroke. That's not a problem at all for me.
you got to drive because you definitely can't fly into Pembroke.
Yeah. Yeah, you right. You right. But you know, you never know. I think that Pembroke honestly is on a come up. I think that in a couple years, like, you know, I might come back and be like, is this Pembroke or am I in Lumberton or Fayetteville somewhere? But no, I'm definitely proud, you know, of the vision that a lot of people have for this city and this town, because I think it's going somewhere. The students here, like you said, they're unapologetic, and they're gonna make sure that, you know, they're leaving their mark on this campus and on this university. Because I ain't been here for 4 years, you know, for me to come back in 5 or 10 years and not see no change or no improvement, you know what I'm saying? So a lot of us have put in a lot of work and have dedicated a lot of our time to this university. So I'm very excited to see where it will go. But definitely, you know, I would love to meet you in person. I was so excited when I was asked to do this interview. I'm like, little old me.
You channeled your, and not quite Oprah yet, but you like.
Listen, I'm gonna be Katrea, okay? I'm gonna be. Y'all are gonna know me as Katrea, Trey, whatever you want to call me, honey. But I definitely appreciate it. I really have enjoyed this time with you. I'm sure our viewers have enjoyed it as well. I don't have any last words. Shout out to UNCP, NAACP. You all have made this, you know, a wonderful event, and I'm very, very excited to see more. Shout out to our president, David Graham, Zion Sellers, Reed Rains, and all of the members for, you know, just helping them out and putting this together, and our wonderful advisor, Mr. John Dunlap. And, you know, I think that everyone has really worked hard to make this, you know, happen. So definitely excited. I really appreciate you. And with that being said, we'll wrap this up. If anyone, David, if you have any final words. It was nice meeting you, Bakari. Again, maybe we will see each other sometime soon, and I will see you all later.
All right, thank you.
Well, just want to say real quick, thank you again, Mr. Sellers, for being with us. We really appreciate you. And to all of our viewers, everyone that has tuned in with us throughout the week, from our night with Mr. Cleveland Sellers III, to our Tiny Desk concert that we streamed last night, to now our evening with Mr. Bakari Sellers. I just want to thank you for all of your support, and we hope to see you again soon for future events. Thank you, and y'all have a good evening.